Is that good?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I didn't get nervous until about 10:30, and then it was just like, I do have notes. I will warn you that sometimes my brain responds to anxiety by giving me a blue screen of death right in the middle of a sentence. So if I come to a sudden halt, that's why. Yeah, I've been reading these passages, all three of the readings for today, off and on for the last few weeks, and getting a couple of points out of them. I think the main thing that I get is that, we may sometimes be blessed to be like Lazarus and be passively resurrected by God in some way, but that resurrection is really about choices, and it's about us taking on that role of being Christian, of being Christ-like, and going around and doing our best to resurrect others. Because I didn't really grow up reading scripture, it sometimes strikes me a little oddly. I had to laugh when Martha says, "But there's a stench, he's been dead 4 days." And I thought about that, and I think that's a signpost that we can use to figure out when something needs to be resurrected. If we catch ourselves thinking, "Man, he stinks," or "Man, that stinks," well, maybe we ought to do something about it. And also, that classic verse, the Jesus wept verse, that I was kind of scratching my head over and going, okay, he said he was going there to resurrect him. He knows he's going to resurrect him. Why is he weeping? Why does, he shouldn't have, he already knows it's going to be fine. But I think also, in order to have that power of resurrection, we have to be truly moved. We can't just think, oh, it's fine, it's not a big deal. It has to be a big deal. And so I'm going to try to kind of tie this in with my own life, and then also maybe, hopefully it'll give you something that you can take and apply to your lives as well. Most of you know me. You know that I'm transgender. I was born in a female body, and over the past few years have medically transitioned to living as male. And I definitely feel like in a lot of ways I have been blessed fairly passively. 4 years ago, almost to the day, not quite, but pretty close, I was going through a really bad breakup with somebody I wasn't even officially dating, which was odd, but I was a mess. I was leaving work because I was having anxiety attacks so bad that I just couldn't be alive to go home. I was just getting in fights with my friends. I was hurting myself physically because I just didn't know any way to cope with all the anxiety I was feeling, all the craziness that was going on. And it was I hope the screen just went blank on that. I'm sorry. I'm gonna make sure we're still recording. Yeah, whatever. Okay. the thing was, I did reach out, and I did make choices. My mom had taught me some things to do that were, probably wouldn't look like prayer to most people, but that's what it was. It was, I don't have any other options. I don't know where else to turn. I'm going to try this. And, basically reaching out and saying, please help me figure this out. And within a few days of that, I knew that I was going to physically transition. And I started that process. But I went into transition expecting a lot of resistance, expecting rejection, expecting, to have to struggle a lot to get through the system. And I didn't experience that. I had the complete support of my family. I had total support at work. The University of Michigan insurance policies changed just in time for me to have top surgery. It was like, and so I was sort of at a loss. I felt really weird because it's like, why am I not having to struggle? I expected a struggle. And so in that way, it felt really passive. It felt like I was just being handed these things in a way that other people had not been. And, my initial response to that was a lot of guilt. It was a lot of, but, I'm willing to struggle, but, why am I not having to struggle? And I got in this, I didn't realize it until it changed, but I got in this state of mind where I knew that I cared passionately about the LGBT community. I knew that I wanted to make a difference. But the model I had for that in my head was to struggle with that, to be a victim, to be rejected. And not being in that model, like I didn't know how to cope with that. It was there's a particular something I'm trying to come up with here that's not coming to me. Like I said, I didn't really realize what was going on until it changed. But about the same time I started transitioning, I also got involved with just an amazing group of people who are just encouragers and, just teach that anything is possible, that if we'll just learn and change and grow, we can accomplish whatever we want to accomplish. And about 2 years after the start of this process, I had this moment of revelation where I realized, I had this cause that I was willing to die for, but I thought I had to die for it. I thought that the only way I had the power to change was to be a victim and to be seen as a victim. And when that changed, it was pretty amazing. It was, it was not something I knew I was looking for, but when I found it, it was, I realized that I also have role models like Jim Toy, people who, not through their death, but through their life, have created change. And part of the problem was that I didn't, initially believe that I was important enough or influential enough to create change. And I realized, you know what? I just gotta get better. I just gotta grow. I gotta gain the influence. I have to be willing to live and to struggle, to always face, to always turn back towards the fight. We've talked about the turning of Lent, and to me that's that's what that turning is about. It's about rejecting complacency, rejecting despair, rejecting hate, rejecting bitterness. You know, it's about fighting through it. It's about the fact that I have a choice, and the people who have been victims and who are still victims today don't have a choice, and I will not let them be alone in that struggle. You know, because I have a choice, I will choose to take the hard path. And you know, I hadn't really connected with the passage from Ezekiel until I was rereading it last night. And it just, I mean, again, just sort of this curtains drawn back. It was like, oh, yeah, that's what we're talking about. You know, I mean, I feel like I've been put in this valley to breathe life into those who have passed, to carry on their life, to be their resurrection, and to help those who are here have the kind of resurrection that I've had, to make it possible for those in the future. We've actually already covered the end part of that, but yeah, I think I think the point is that we can all make those kind of choices in some way in our lives. I don't think that, you know, the LGBT struggle is everybody's struggle, but I think that there is a struggle. I mean, I almost went too far in the opposite direction. Like, I caught myself saying the other day, I was talking to a friend and I said, you know, man, it's so awesome that Don't Ask, Don't Tell is repealed, but sometimes I feel like, well, what's going to be left for me? And I like, that came out of my mouth and I was like, what? Like, wait a minute. Like, we have to be careful not to define ourselves so much in the struggle that when we get the victory, we can't celebrate it. You know, as I was thinking that through, it's like, okay, yeah, we don't want to get stuck in seeing it there so that we can't move on. But I also think that there's never going to be, you know, the world is never going to be perfect. There's always going to be something that we can find to change. And if we, you know, when we have one victory, then the thing is really just to move on, find the next place to have a victory. In fact, I think that if we're not in that battle constantly, that we will very quickly slide back into the oppression, into the death of the spirit, and into the death of the flesh. So I hope that was helpful to you guys and not just me talking about me. Thank you.